Good morning. My name is Samara Miller, and it is my privilege to welcome you to the Neuqua Valley Veterans Ceremony.
And my name is Tushar Dwivedi, and it's our honor to be your host this morning. In addition to being proud Wildcats, we both have great respect and appreciation for those who have made the admirable choice to serve our country.
I have the pleasure this morning to introduce Dr. Benjamin White. Dr. White is a retired lieutenant colonel who served 22 years in the Army as a field artillery officer, leading and mentoring soldiers throughout his military career before retiring from active duty in 2008. He taught at the United States Military Academy at West Point and served as a professor of military science / battalion commander of the Reserve Officer Training Corps program at Wheaton College. He continues to inspire and motivate students by working with the Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps program at the Joliet West High School. Please welcome Lieutenant Colonel White to the stage as he calls for the posting of the colors and leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please remain standing for the singing of the national anthem performed by Neuqua Valley's Men's Quartet.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we've marched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You may be seated. Our theme for the Veterans Ceremony is family. At Neuqua Valley, we often think of each other as extended family members. Today, you hear from the members of our Wildcat family, past and present. You'll enjoy some meaningful music from our Neuqua Valley Men Chorus, while we honor through photographs and VHS students, staff, and families who have served. We will have the opportunity to hear from the current members of the Marines and Army. For our keynote session, you'll hear from two Neuqua alum who both graduated together as best friends, chose to serve in the Marines and Army, and are now serving locally as firefighters. Finally, you'll see a video about one of our teacher's father who as a young boy on Pearl Harbor at the time of the bombings and then went on to serve in the Korean War. Today we celebrate those who have risen to the ultimate call, to serve and protect the freedom that we enjoy as citizens of the United States of America. Again, thank you for being here with us as we recognize a number of heroes that have ties to Neuqua Valley High School. At this time, please welcome Sergeant Rivera from the United States Marine Corps.
How are we all doing today? Good? All right. I would first like to thank Dr. McBride, Mr. Perry, and their staff for their support and relationship with the different branches of service. I was asked to say a few words of what Veterans Day meant for me. When I think of veterans, I think of the millions of people that have served since the beginning of our nation, the individuals that have had the selfless devotion to their duties, time they sacrifice, and at times spent away from their loved ones. Most importantly, the ones that gave the ultimate price in the line of duty. Without these service members, law enforcement officers, firefighters, and any other related fields of duty, our country would have never had the chance to grow and be one of the most powerful nations that the world has ever seen. These individuals have paved the way for all of us to have a chance of doing something great and accomplish our goals and dreams. There are many individuals who are heroes right in your school. They walk your hallways every day and influence your lives whether you are aware of it or not. One of these individuals is Mr. Jared Mason. You may know him as one of your English teachers, but I bet most of you did not know that he served as a specialist in the Army National Guard. For this reason, I am presenting you, Mr. Mason, with this certificate of appreciation on behalf of the United States Marine Corps. Would you please join me on stage, Mr. Mason? The certificate reads as follows. United States Marine Corps, Certificate of Appreciation. The Commanding Officer, Recruiting Station, Chicago, 9th Marine Corps District, takes pleasure in commending Jared Mason, United States Army National Guard, for serving in the Armed Forces of the United States of America. Through your honorable service and unwavering dedication to our country's freedom, you have embodied the discipline and self-sacrifice required of the less than 1% of Americans who serve in the U.S. military. You have reflected great credit upon yourself and have upheld the highest traditions of the United States of America and its armed forces. Signed, 10 November 2015, S.A. Porter, Major, U.S. Marine Corps, Commanding. For my final words, I would like to say thank you for your service, and I want to thank the young men and women who are considering their options and their service while at Neuqua Valley High School. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergeant Rivera, and thank you, Mr. Mason, for your service. At this time, please welcome Major Wimblum from the United States Army.
Well, good morning. It's truly an honor to be here with you today. On behalf of the United States Army, we extend our thanks to the veterans that came before, the past, the present, and the future. With that, I've made a lot of friends in my Army time. And one of those great friends came from these halls. This school is very significant to me, because I met a great young man who's actually serving in Korea right now. He's flying Blackhawks, and his name's Lieutenant Brian Moranis. You may not have known him. He graduated 2009 from this school, and I know maybe the teachers may That name may ring a bell, but he did great things for not only the school at the United States Military Academy, where he graduated in the top 10% of his class, but he has gone on to do great things in our Army. And, if we could, I got a little clip from him just this morning in South Korea.
Hey, all, Lieutenant Brian Marinas out here at Camp Humphrey, South Korea. Currently working as a platoon leader with the Black Hawk Helicopter Company. I just wanted to give a shout out to all the staff and faculty at Neuqua. Appreciate all the input that you had as I was growing up and developing at Neuqua as an athlete and a student. Also wanted to give a shout out to Neuqua Valley Athletics, specifically the cross country team as well. Congrats to you guys on the 3rd place finish at state just a few days ago. Go Army!
I have to thank each and every one of you, the teachers, the staff and faculty, and then most importantly, the students, because the culture that you have going on in this school is truly one of excellence. And I would ask you to continue your pursuit in excellence in all things, because it makes for great veterans. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Major Wenblum. Next, I'd like to introduce Mike Brada and Mark Baklita. These men both walk the halls of our very own Neuqua Valley High School, graduated in 2004, and chose to enlist in the United States Army and United States Marine Corps to serve our country. Please welcome Mr. Brada and Mr. Baklita to the stage as they're interviewed by current senior Lexi Sanders.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. How does it feel to be back at Neuqua?
Feels good. It's different though.
It does feel pretty good. It's been a long time since I've been here.
Would you guys mind introducing yourself and explaining to us a little bit about your background?
Sure. I'm Mark Baklita. I graduated in between 04, 03. I decided to finish my senior year in one semester. Joined the Army. While I was in the Army, I went to Iraq 3 times, and I'm currently a firefighter paramedic for the city of Aurora.
And I'm Mike Brada. I graduated in 2004. I've been friends with Mark since well before then. 8th grade, yeah. I went to the United States Marine Corps shortly after graduating high school. Went to Iraq once, Korea, and lived in Okinawa, Japan for 2 years. And now I'm currently working as a firefighter paramedic in Carroll Stream.
And what led to your decision in deciding that you wanted to serve?
For me, I've had a desire to serve since I was a real little kid. I wanted to be a paleontologist first, but I went to go see an exhibit, and it was closed in Boston, and Desert Storm had ended at the USS Raleigh was home. I went on board the ship, and I fell in love. All the 18-year-old Marines kind of dressed me up and stuff, let me spin the turret of a Bradley fighting vehicle, and I was hooked on the military. It just changed branches and desires throughout the years until I joined.
Mine was a little different. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to play football in college. So I was kind of working on pursuing that. And then as a favor to a friend of mine, I went to go and talk to his recruiter. And after spending an hour or two with him, it was more of a question of why not join. I saw that I could get so much more out of the Marine Corps than I could have ever gotten out of college.
And I understand that before you were able to serve, you had to go into training. So can you talk to us a little bit about your training experiences?
Sure. I graduated early, so I left before the semester break. I left in December and didn't come back afterwards. I went through basic training, infantry school, and airborne school all at Fort Benning, Georgia. I was able to come back here and walk across the stage once I finished all those ones. But that was my basic training. Then I went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where I trained all the time with my unit before I went overseas.
I went to boot camp in August of 2004 to MCRD San Diego for 13 weeks of Marine Corps boot camp. And then after that, I went back to Camp Pendleton, which is about an hour north for Marine combat training, and then to San Angelo, Texas for aircraft firefighter training.
Did you feel as if you were mentally prepared when you went into training and then when you were out in the field?
Mentally prepared as in the training mentally prepared? Or
Yeah.
the training only can do so much. I mean, it teaches you all the basics. It teaches you what to do, how to do the mechanics, but all that gets furthered when you actually get to your unit. They train you. When you get to your unit, since I got there in the summer of '04, I had a lot of guys that just came back from their first rotation from Iraq, and they were heavily influential in making sure I was ready. I was only at the unit for maybe 4 or 5 months before I deployed to Iraq for my first time. So I was prepared, but a lot of the preparation actually came from the guys who'd been there, just like I tried my hardest to prepare my guys after I'd been there on my first, second, and third deployments.
For me, I feel like it was always kind of, you think you're prepared right before it's, next level, the next training or your deployment. After you graduate boot camp, you think you can run through walls and do whatever. And you get to the next level of training, and it's like, okay, a little bit of reality check.
There's always reality checks.
Can you guys share a story about one of your deployments?
Sure. What type of story? Do you have a specific or?
What about your experiences with the people living in the areas?
Okay. For me, what I did when I was overseas, I didn't live at a base. I lived at what was called a COB, a combat operations base. I lived out in the middle of the city. We started doing that in 2004, and towards the end, it was more frequent to see units doing it. But what we'd do is we'd go out and we'd live with the populace. We'd take over a building in an area, fortify ourselves, and that way we'd have an interaction with the populace. We conducted our main focus was intel control-driven raids, cordon searches of specific areas, but living out in the city gave us the benefit of actually knowing the people. You got to develop your own contacts for intelligence, knowing the local people. People could come to you to share information. You could walk around, get to learn the habits, and there was always a 24-hour presence in the city, which was pretty interesting, living out there as opposed to behind the walls of a base.
A good story I have is my deployment was a bit different than Mark's. While I was also doing security operations, we were in charge of providing security for a large air base. So we worked the gates, did perimeter patrols, and then kind of patrolled some of the fuel fields and large ammo dumps that Saddam had used back when he was in power. And while we were working the gate, there was a Iraqi named Hassan that would always come on. He'd sell fruits and stuff on base and always give us stuff. Or one story or one thing about him is he had provided intelligence about insurgent activity in his hometown. So, and the insurgents knew about that, and then he became a target. So him and his wife would take turns staying up throughout the night, making sure their children are safe. And that was the world he had to live with. But he said he preferred it that way than the way it was before.
War and conflict is often glamorized and sensationalized in games such as Call of Duty, which many Neuqua students play. Can you talk to us about the reality of war in comparison to these games and movies that are so common?
There's no reset button. It's one thing to, even in training, running around, they gave you these little vests in basic training that would beep if you got shot. It's a complete another thing when you actually have people shooting at you, when you start hearing the snaps and the clicks and the hisses, differentiating between the sound of, okay, this is close, and no, this is actually, I'm really getting shot at right now. I can tell you, looking back on it, I probably was most scared in my life at certain points, but you don't have time to think about that when things are happening. But it's definitely not a video game. You have to balance common sense with your desire to do what's right, but you're also trying to protect and work with the guys with you. I think that overcomes any fear. If there is fear or hesitation, you can't, because you have to do something because your buddy next to you is depending on you. I mean, I remember probably one of the scaredest times I ever was is my third deployment. They transitioned from force-on-force engagements to indirect combat, so more IEDs. They ended up launching Katyusha rockets at the building we were living in, strapped with oxyacetylene tanks. And I just remember two of my buddies, we were sergeants, we went down to check on the guys, and we ended up getting run back in the building while stuff was exploding all around us. I think there were some pictures somewhere in there of all the vehicles burning, but we ran through the middle of that and kind of dived over this little 1-foot wall, and we're hugging each other in the fetal position while stuff was blasting around us. And then, you know, I mean, if you're playing a Call of Duty video game, you just hit the reset button and start over. Man, this doesn't look like my mission's going the way it's supposed to be. So it's definitely not like that.
I think to kind of go off what Mark was saying, it's the emotion involved with it. You know, you're completely detached from a video game. It's fake. There's a reset. That's your character's nothing. It's when somebody passes out there. It's somebody's brother, somebody's son, father, something like that.
For that story, me and my buddy Cash, we were the guys hanging behind the wall, hugging each other pretty much there. While our buddy Wanger ran back out, he went a different way, so we didn't know he tried to find another entrance to the building, so we had to go back out there, and we got bombed again, running back in, looking for him. But it didn't occur to us once that we shouldn't go out to where stuff was bombs and mortars were falling on us. We were looking for a buddy who decided to run a different direction, because our thought process is he's still out there. We needed to go find him.
And how do you think movies are becoming more like they actually depict what war is like?
I think they're getting better, if that makes sense. There have been some more accurate ones, in my opinion, if I'm watching movies. You had a documentary, Restrepo, that was very accurate as it was a documentary film. But even movies like The Hurt Locker or American Sniper, I think they're getting, with the scenery and the environment, they're trying to get things more accurate. So, and some of the movies definitely can hit home with at least me when I'm watching them.
I definitely, like Mark, they're getting better. Like I said, it's a little more of the emotion involved, the scenery, though they're all still kind of, Hollywooded up and made bigger and bigger.
Being in conflict or war is very tough on a number of levels. What are some negative experiences that you have had?
While I was in Iraq in 2008, a friend of mine who I joined the Marines with and had known, we would come home at the same time. He had died in Afghanistan, and it was tough because here I am, one war, and there's my friend out there at another, and nothing I could do about it.
Difficult experiences, yeah, I've had a couple. I've lost some really good friends. I never was touched. I've been in stuff that's blown up. I've been blown flat on my backside before. I've had bullets hitting near me. I've had stuff laying between my legs. And it's kind of weird to know that nothing has ever happened to me, but stuff has happened to my buddies. Like my third deployment, one of the biggest thing that weighs on me is I was on Overwatch with my team, and they were conducting raids on a lower level. You'd always go to the higher position for Overwatch. And if any of you guys have seen the movie American Sniper, you saw they had the foreign influence. Well, there really were foreign snipers over there. And so I'm on Overwatch trying to protect my guys below me. That's my job. And one of my buddies was shot by a sniper below me, and there's not a thing I could do being in charge of the team above, knowing it's my job to stop that. But there was absolutely nothing you could do, and then having to kind of deal and live with knowing that it's my responsibility to stop it, but there's nothing they can do to prevent some of these actions. So I've lost some good buddies, and definitely things like that you have to think about, carry with you throughout life.
As difficult as some of these experiences are, have there been many positive experiences too that you can take away?
Absolutely, more than I can count. I've got, I guess I'll call them brothers now. They're more than friends. They're my extended family. I've got more of them than I can count. Guys I haven't seen in years, and I still, when we call up and talk, it's like we just saw each other yesterday. Lots of good times, lots of fun. Even in the most serious places, you still find time to have fun and prank each other and do things like that.
I would definitely say there's a lot of positives from the military. I left high school at the time when I didn't think education was important to me. I needed a swift kick in my pants at that age. I can attribute all my success in life to the military. I needed the discipline instilled. I needed everything that the military gave me. And that's what made me successful in life now. I've always had a drive and a passion since the military. You can set an objective, you can tackle an objective, and you're already scouting your next objective before you're finishing your objective you're working on. So the military shaped and molded my personality to what I am now. I got out of the Army in 2008, and I haven't stopped moving since. And EMT, medic, fire departments, I've transferred fire departments, all aiming towards my number one goal. And I definitely attribute that to the military. Your ability to tackle problems in front of you, your ability to work towards something. I would take it my experience is a lot of character and improvement of myself from the military is a very big positive.
And how do you think you were able to grow in that way from the military?
Well, the growth would be, I mean, the military instills those skills in you. They instill your discipline, your ability to complete a task. Going back to school now, I just got my degree with honors. Why? Because I can get A's. It's just a matter of putting an effort in. Whereas in high school, it wasn't it wasn't a desire. I didn't want to. I didn't need to. But now it's a personal pride. The military is if you're going to do something, do your best. If you're going to do it, complete it. Don't stop halfway. Finish it. Drive towards your goal with passion. So the military definitely positively influenced me on that. I'm at where I am in my life right now because of it. I absolutely love. I'm on my dream fire department now. I've been working for this since 2008, and I haven't stopped. And I attribute that all to the military.
During tough experiences out there, what did you do to relieve stress?
Play cards, like I said, throw pranks at each other. There was one time I was showering. We have these metal cans you shower in, or metal boxes with plumbing and stuff, and running water. And about 4 of my friends had attacked me with silly string. You know, it's once you get wet, this stuff really sticks to you. So it's
a lot of since we were out in the middle of nowhere, a lot of times we would do social things together. But the thing that resonates with me the most is portable DVD players. We all had a portable DVD player, and you'd just get lost. Like, pick your season or show. You'd watch 10 seasons of Friends in like 2 weeks. So every free hour you had that you weren't on patrol or doing something, it was a way to lose yourself into another reality, and in a way get emotionally connected with something that you know wasn't going to disappear. If that kind of makes sense, like, you know, you're connected to that show, you were able to put your emotions and thoughts into that and kind of detach yourself from your current reality. At least that's the way I looked at it, and a lot of us did that. We would do social things together, but then sometimes you just needed your own mind to be cleared and lose yourself from the reality that you're actually in, because in 5 seconds you could have been getting bombed or blown up and throwing that DVD player across the room and grabbing your stuff. But it was a good way to detach.
As you reflect now, what are some feelings that you have knowing that you've served your country?
like Mark talked about pride. I have the absolute, biggest sense of pride knowing that I served my country. I did something that I think the number is 3% of the American population have done, which is serve your country. And I don't think the number's even less for going overseas. It's something I'll carry with me till the day I die. If everything goes wrong in my life, I can always look back on it and say, I did this, and I did it with pride.
I'd agree. No matter what's going on in my life, I can always fall back on what I learned from the military, but also all those good experiences. Sure, good and bad while you had them, but you look back and it's all positive. I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, maybe knowing what I now know, could I have chose a different job? Maybe, and gotten more applicable skills to the field outside? Sure. But in reality, I wouldn't change a thing. The military shaped me and made me who I am, and I needed that. And I absolutely look back with pride at everything I did. My different deployments, the things I saw from a historic standpoint, I got to be involved in a lot of things, if not on a grand scale, on an individual scale. My first deployment, I got to be part of the first democratic elections. My second one was the first parliamentary and presidential elections in Iraq. So it may not seem like they're big events here, but it was actually kind of interesting to know that I was involved with seeing a lot. I got to see historic things, stuff from the Bible overseas. So I mean, there's experiences you can never have or never get any other way, shape, or form than with the military.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for sharing your stories. Do you have any final remarks that you'd like to share?
I wanted, anybody in the students here that are considering joining the military, I think it's an absolute great decision. Same as with Mark, all my success is because of my time in the Marine Corps, and I wouldn't change a single thing about it.
I'd agree. I mean, if you guys want to talk with us as opposed to a recruiter, I can tell you a no BS version of all my stuff. The military, it made me who I am. I mean, I look back and it's such a great experience. I wouldn't change anything. If you don't know what you want to do, the military can help you. Doesn't matter the branch, doesn't matter. You will learn skills that you will never learn anywhere else in life. We had buddies that went to college. You got out of the military, I was so much more prepared for life. I was an adult. They were still worrying about what was on TV and what kind of fast food to order, where I'm worried about what's a job, what's this. You know, you have life skills. You learn a lot more than just what's inside a book.
Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you for having us.
More than welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen. One more round of applause for Mr. Brada and Mr. Baclita. Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Reed Spears. I am part of the Neuqua Valley Music Department. Growing up in the Spears household, there were many stories that we came to know. You see, my father has always been a great storyteller, always willing to share experiences from when he was a kid, or from his time in the Navy, or from his career as an electrician, and share those stories with anyone who would listen. For those of you familiar with the movie Forrest Gump, I've often joked that Dad was our own Forrest Gump because of his continual brushes with history. We knew of the time he saw the Hindenburg in the air shortly before its tragic crash. We knew of the time he was along a presidential parade route with his own father, who happened to be in his Navy uniform, and my grandfather saluted FDR as he passed, who then returned the salute. But perhaps the one we knew best was our family's history with Pearl Harbor. In fact, it has been such an important part of our past that when my wife and I took our honeymoon in Hawaii, the only thing on my must-do list while I was there was visiting the Pearl Harbor Memorial for the first time. Now, nearly 3/4 of a century after that stunning moment in our nation's history, I stand here proudly as both a son and a grandson of Navy veterans. I'm sorry to say that I never met my grandpa Spears, who died long before I was born, but I am so excited that my father was selected to share his story today. For all of the times throughout my career that my parents have been to my concerts and seen me in the spotlight, it is my honor and privilege to turn the tables today and shine the spotlight on Dad. And I hope you enjoy hearing him share his experiences in the following video feature. I now present to you a former Pearl Harbor resident, a Navy and Korean War veteran, and most importantly to me, my father, Ralph Spears.
In 1941, Pearl Harbor was known as home for 9-year-old Ralph Spears. His father was a submarine attack instructor and was stationed at the naval base on the island of Oahu. Ralph attended a Leolani school just outside of Honolulu and remembers there being only one hotel on Waikiki Beach at the time, the Royal Hawaiian. On the weekends, the family would make the short trip to Hanauma Bay to go swimming in the cove. When Navy housing opened up, the Spears family moved into the chief's quarters, which was about 300 feet from the fence of the naval base. Ralph recalls life at that time as simple and laid back. On Sunday, December 7th, 1941, the day for Ralph started out like any other Sunday had for this 9-year-old, but would soon be known as a date that would live in infamy.
And the big thing on Sunday morning when you're 9 years old is the funny papers. And I would go out Sunday morning and they would throw the funnies of the paper up on the sidewalk. And I'd run out there and grab the funnies. And I went out December 7th, there was no funnies, no paper, no nothing. And I was standing out there looking for the paper when an airplane went right over the roof of the house. You know, you could see the pilots in the planes, they were that low. And flying over, I thought, this is really neat. Well, you know, you're a kid, you know, 9 years old. Wow, they got maneuvers. So I went up and I woke up my father and I said, hey, Dad, we got maneuvers going. That's really neat. And he looked out the window and he saw the Jap Zero and he said, uh-oh, we're at war. So we got to get out of here. So we packed up real quick and got in the car, and we went over and stayed with friends on the other side of Navy housing, away from the oil tanks. And we could look across at Hickam Field. And actually, a lot of the fighter planes were alongside the fence parked, and the Japanese workers that worked there at Hickam Field had let the air out of the tires and drained the gas. So they never could use them.
While Ralph's father reported to the naval base, the rest of the family took shelter and anxiously awaited word as to whether there would be more attacks or when their loved ones would return home. 2 days later, on December 9th, Ralph's father came home and took him for a ride over to the naval base.
And I can still this day remember him saying, when you grow up, maybe you'll remember this. And you walk along, and you think like maybe like a hurricane or a tornado. The buildings are down and twisted. My dad said, there's the Oklahoma. It was a battleship, was laying on its side, and it was still burning. They couldn't put it out. They were too busy doing other things. And we went by the tennis courts, and we could see all the body bags lined up in rows on the tennis court, waiting to go up to be buried. But it was, really a mess. The day after Pearl Harbor, my dad walked around the Navy base, and he decided that maybe he'd get some things that we could remember down the years to come. But that's 2 pieces of a Japanese Zero that crashed on the Navy base. They dropped a lot of bombs. Those are bomb fragments from Japanese bombs that landed on the base at Pearl Harbor.
In 1951, Ralph Spears followed in his father's footsteps and enlisted in the Navy. He went to boot camp at Great Lakes Naval Base near North Chicago in Lake County, Illinois. After boot camp, Ralph was sent to serve his country in the Korean War.
Well, the Korean War was originally called the Forgotten War, and it started out as they called it a police action. And the sad part about that was if you had a problem and you got hurt in a police action, you didn't get the benefits you get in wartime. So a lot of complaining went on from the veterans group, and actually they got some of the congressmen on it to change the name of a police action to an actual war, because we had a lot of people getting killed. And I started out on a patrol frigate out of Hong Kong, and we had a sister ship, and we would swap. We'd do 3 months in Hong Kong. We were there for the American consulate, and then we would go to Korea for 3 months, and the other ship would go and stay in Hong Kong. And so we'd spend time up on the bomb line, and it was kind of interesting.
When they decommissioned the patrol frigate, Ralph was reassigned to the USS Rochester, a heavy cruiser in the Pacific Fleet. His job on that ship was in fire control.
I was in fire control, and that's gunnery control. And we actually shoot the guns. And I got assigned to what they call main battery. We had 3-inch guns, 5-inch guns, and 8-inch guns. And so I was with the 8-inch group. And because of that, I got to be in the forward director. And how it happened, I have no idea, but I actually got to be the one to shoot the 8-inch guns.
Ralph's experience in the war was from the ships, and he never experienced any fighting on land. The role he and his shipmates had were to help the Army and Marines with their land battles, and in some cases provided assistance with taking out specific targets.
We got a call one day that there was a farmer plowing the hill on the ridge on top of the beach. But he was plowing the same furrow, and he had a mule and the plow, and he had packs on the mule. And he was up there for a long time, plowing the same section. And they decided he was a spotter. And he had the radio gear, and he was spotting for the guns back in the cave, where to shoot and what to hit. So we got a call, and they said, take the turret 1 out and take out the spotter. And I put the crosshairs on the spotter, and then the top of the hill was gone the next thing I know. And there was no more top of the hill and no more spotter.
The Korean War ended in 1953, and Ralph served in the peacetime Navy until September of 1955. When he got out of the Navy, he entered into an electrical apprentice program and became an electrician, and he worked on the big buildings in Chicago. Ralph married Jerry in November of 1953 and had 2 sons. He and his wife live in the Chicago suburbs and enjoy spending time with their family, cheering on the Chicago Bears and the Chicago Blackhawks.
Good afternoon. What a great place to be in. It's an honor and privilege, one, to hear from you, Reed, but also to have Mr. Spears here in our audience with his wife. So, Mr. Spears, could you please stand up and we could acknowledge you for your service? Big round of applause. And that history. It's great to have you here today. My name is Bob McBride. I have the great honor and privilege of serving this outstanding high school as its principal. Before I begin some remarks that I'd like to contribute and end with an acknowledgement of our many family members who have served throughout time and throughout history, I'd like to extend some thank yous. First, as always, to our students who are emceeing this event, Lexi Sanders, Samara Miller, and Tushar Devedi. Could you please give them a big round of applause? It takes a lot of courage. I'd like to also acknowledge Mrs. Lisa Trout. I walk out of this building very late. Oftentimes, I left last night at 8:30. Her car was still in the parking lot. For all of her work and all of the media that you see here, as well as her colleague, Mr. John Gelsomino, from the Media Communications Department, as well as all of our media students. Could you please give them a big round of applause? Thank you to Neuqua Valley Music, Jake Kellner, Reed Spears, for entering us, our students, with their beautiful voices and their contributions. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Deanna Runge, who is a secretary at the Burkett Center, who was invaluable help to the assistant principal, who really put everything you see here today together. That's Mr. Dave Perry, and they all, and especially Mr. Perry, my colleague, if you could give him and them a huge round of applause, it would mean a great deal to me. If you could, I'm a teacher, so a little bit of audience participation. It's probably a good time for us to get kinesthetically involved. But I'd like some audience participation. I'd like to begin with some of our guests here. And when I call you to stand up, could you simply, until we're finished, remain standing? That's what I would ask of you. I'd like to pay some tribute to all the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, past and present, who are willing to follow their call, to serve their nation, and to serve their comrades in arms. Today we have some active military personnel joining us on stage, and I would like to thank them and recognize them. So as I call your name, could you please stand? Sergeant George Rivera, United States Marines, and Sergeant Raymond Harris, United States Marines. If you could please stand and remain standing. Staff Sergeant Timothy Nasser, Major Martin Wenblum, and Lieutenant Colonel Benny White, United States Army. Ship Serviceman First Class Mario Quintana, United States Navy. Thank you for remaining standing. Now, another group. We have veterans in our midst who have served our nation, like Mr. Mason. Could I ask all the veterans here who have served our nation, including my father-in-law, great man, Bruce Ostick, if you could please stand, all of our nation's veterans. Thank you. One more group. One more group. Finally, many of you, and we'll see their faces, but could you join these very fine veterans? You might have a veteran in your heart. It might be a daughter, it might be a son, it might be a brother, it might be your fiance. We have 2 current staff members engaged as service members here on staff. It might be a friend, it might be somebody that's in your mind that you're thinking of. If you today are representing a veteran, past or present, could you bring that person into this space simply by standing so we can acknowledge them as part of our family? Could you just stand up if you've got someone on your mind that you're representing here? Wherever they are, whenever they were, and however they served, could we give those people who are in our hearts a huge round of applause? Thank you to all of these veterans. Thank you. Take a seat. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. I'd like to add to my remarks just simply two words, empathy and integrity. They've been on my mind quite a bit this fall, and they're often words that are misused, overused, underused, misdefined, sometimes used in Hallmark greeting cards, and we don't even know what they mean anymore, but I think they're two of the most significant words in the English language, and possibly the best words to describe what we are actually trying to celebrate today. For our students, you come to a ceremony like this and you might be overwhelmed by history, overwhelmed by sacrifice, overwhelmed by what two graduates from our school did, and you might say to yourself, that's not me. I'm not that epic. I can't serve in that way. I can't make that sacrifice. And I'd ask you to just hit the pause button on that and reflect on these two words of empathy and integrity. Recently, I heard a speaker named Simon Sinek talk about probably the most important thing in our United States Armed Forces. Mr. Backlota spoke to this, and that's empathy. And he defined it in this way in our armed services, that over and over again, interviews with veterans tell us that there's something unique about the United States Armed Forces, that in the moment, in the heat, throughout time of history, that our servicemen and women have fought for each other. They haven't fought for a dictator, a theology, a demagoguery, a political belief. They fought for their comrades. They did it for the men and women to the right and to the left of them. They did the most extraordinary things because they had the knowledge that that comrade would do that for them. And that's something called empathy. They understood when a comrade was outside of the building and had to find him or her. And that linked them in that bond that really represents our entire country, in a belief that the individual matters, in a belief in a democratic ideal that we actually all matter. It's the deepest expression in our veterans of what this great nation is ultimately all about. And if you ask yourselves this, you can extend that empathy every single day you come to Neuqua Valley High School, when you leave this auditorium and when you return tomorrow, simply by the act of consideration for the people around you. You can serve. You can serve. And you can serve others. If you want to today to honor these great veterans, honor them with your service. Honor them with an attitude of empathy. Integrity. I heard a United States Marine Corps aviator recently speak named Art Albert, and he talked about the word integrity, sometimes a word that gets lost. And when we speak of veterans, we see people who have accomplished something amazing. Art Albert defined integrity as that constant struggle between what we value and believe in our actions. And sometimes there's distance between the two, isn't there? It's hard. But when we really work as human beings to pull them together and align them, that's when we have integrity. In military service, we call that valor. When a belief matches an action, a deed, we call that valor. And we can look at our veterans and that kind of valor in the face of an enemy or a danger or even hopelessness. Why go on? And empathy is related to integrity because empathy is the thing that leads us into integrity. It compels us towards other people. So when we leave today and return to class or school or our afternoons, I hope you're out there pulling together the constant struggle between your values and your actions. And if we commit to that struggle, to aligning what we believe with what we say, do, and think, then we participate in the culture of service that our veterans fought to protect, that they model today, and that they preserve for our future. We got to participate as well because, as was mentioned earlier, only about 1%, 3% of our citizenry volunteer for this volunteer army. We're asking a lot of them, so we have to do our part for what they've defended. If we value these veterans, let's live that value daily and mirror the empathy they extended to their comrades and the integrity that they showed in their valor. We don't have to wait to be powerful or wealthy or influential to see changes in the future, in our nation, or our next generation. If we wait until we're in those positions, we are going to be waiting a very, very long time. So if you walk out of here today and you want to honor these men and women, honor them with developing your own empathy. Honor them by developing your own integrity. And like these veterans, all we have to do is serve. All we have to do is serve. Thanks so much. Tushar, you are back up. Thank you very much for being here and honoring these people.
Thank you, Dr. McBride. We'd now like to introduce our men of Neuqua's choirs, who will be singing Who Are the Brave? The text of this selection repeatedly asks this question: who are the brave? Bravery takes many forms and is championed by many different sorts of people. By those in pain, by those whose lives are in pain, by those who go to war, and by those who fight no more. Though we rightfully gather today to honor and thank those who serve and have served in the military, the men of Neuqua's choir revealed through this song that the opportunity of bravery might extend to us all. All the pictures in the slideshow you see represent mothers, daughters, grandfathers, fathers, sons, and relatives of our Neuqua Valley staff. We treasure their service to our country and are pleased to have the opportunity to honor them today.
These words have been used often, but carry much weight. The price of freedom is high. We cannot afford to forget those willing to pay for it. Today, we celebrate America's veterans for keeping this nation the land of the free and the home of the brave. When you see a veteran, take time to thank him or her for serving our country. Thank you all for being here today. Would you please rise as we retreat the colors?
Thank you for being here and giving just a little moment of silence to reflect. We are dismissed. Have a great day. Thanks to our veterans. Give one more round of applause.